Again, we've heard about one particular vaccine that may as well prove to be the answer for coronavirus, and that, of course, is hydroxychloroquine. Right from Trump taking it to the way in which World Health Organization has spoken about it, there is so much news about hydroxychloroquine almost on a daily basis. In fact, the latest when it comes to hydroxychloroquine, which may as well prove to be the vaccine that the entire world is looking for, is that the World Health Organization has resumed or reinitiated trials into the efficacy, the overall efficiency of hydroxychloroquine as a vaccine to treat COVID-19. In fact, this comes at a time when India itself is badly battered and bruised by the COVID-19 pandemic. We're talking about how in the last about 24 hours or so, we have recorded in excess of 9,000 positive cases from across the country, and that apart, in excess of 260 deaths coming in from across India. So these are highest spikes in their own right, and almost on a daily basis we've seen only the spike when it comes to the number of cases anywhere between 6 to 7 or 8,000, but it's almost for the first time that you have a case where you have about 9,200 or so positive cases of coronavirus coming out in the last 24 hours. And even when it comes to the number of casualties, the number of deaths due to COVID-19, that has really touched a new spike with as many as 260 deaths getting confirmed in India. Now, the whole factor of hydroxychloroquine as a vaccine for COVID-19 and the number of cases and deaths that India is registering has one thing in common. Of course, hydroxychloroquine, if it is a potent vaccine for COVID-19, then it's a good thing for the entire world. But when it comes to India, we have a lot of stock of hydroxychloroquine. We've used this drug quite extensively in the past as well. Now, for those of you who may not be aware, hydroxychloroquine is an anti-malarial drug, and United States has in fact imported literally tons of hydroxychloroquine into their country. And you even had US President Donald Trump vouch for the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine. He's even gone ahead and taken an entire dose of hydroxychloroquine, despite the fact that there are not enough studies and research published that hydroxychloroquine can really treat patients without too much of side effects. But in fact, looking at the Lancet study, there's a study that was published that indicated that hydroxychloroquine as a vaccine, if in case administered to the COVID-19 patients, a few of them have even ended up losing their lives due to hydroxychloroquine. Now, it is after a report like this came out into the public domain that the WHO decided to put a break on the trials of hydroxychloroquine, but now they've reinitiated the trials for hydroxychloroquine. So yes, it is again a crucial juncture. While the trials have been resumed into learning the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine, that does not really mean that a vaccine, a potent vaccine, a solution for COVID-19 is right around the corner. As we all know, when it comes to trials, they take their own time, and usually they get stuck here or there when it comes to the overall regulatory process of getting a certain vaccine approved for COVID-19. In fact, to speak more about where the testing for hydroxychloroquine stands and where does India stand, I have another view with me, a very experienced view in the form of Dr. Satyanarayana, who happens to be a pulmonologist at the Manipal Hospital. He'll be able to share with us a few of his thoughts and tell us as to where we really stand when it comes to the hydroxychloroquine vaccine, and also when it comes to the number of cases that India is registering on a daily basis. Dr. Satyanarayana, if you're able to hear me, I'd like to just check the audio first up.
Hi there, Mr. Adarsh. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. So my first question is very straight. We have updates coming in as to how the WHO is resuming trials when it comes to hydroxychloroquine. Do you see a silver lining? Do you see a ray of hope? And how long before we really know whether hydroxychloroquine is really the way forward, doctor?
So, hydroxychloroquine, fortunately or unfortunately, has been the favorite child of controversy. It has been a kind of life-saving drug in conditions like lupus, nephritis, SLE, malaria, and many other disorders. Many years ago, it was touted as a drug for viral infections in general. Currently, it has become controversies' favorite kid. Two to three landmark studies were done and reported in Lancet. The numbers in this trials, clinical trial, was huge, 96,000 and change, you know, huge number of population included in these trials. And the data was published, provided, data for these authors were provided by a particular company consisting of about 5 employees. The mortality that was attributed to chloroquine or overall mortality did not match the mortality figures given by the respective countries, especially take the example of Australia. There was a discrepancy in the numbers that this data outsourcing company gave. That actually kind of twisted this whole topic. And from a point of view where it was said chloroquine as a treatment, it's not a vaccine, it is a treatment. Vaccine is what you give before the disease even sets in to prevent the onset of disease, whereas chloroquine as a treatment is you give, after the disease has come. It's a kind of lot of fallacy, lot of negative trials, but then mortality and morbidity, illness and death attributed to chloroquine is now not to be considered. Both the journals, New England Journal of Medicine and Lancet, have actually expressed concerns over these publications. So I think we are looking forward to further trials.
So, Dr. Satya, in layman terms, it's all about the weight game, isn't it? And again, you refer to as to how a few details were almost in a sense fudged, if I were to use that word. And who really stands to gain if suppose hydroxychloroquine is shown in a good light? And why is it really being done that way?
Correct. So, it is not about who stands to gain, but actually doing what we call as randomized clinical trial should have been the way forward, rather than relying upon or depending upon the data provided by a data source company. And reputed journals should not have taken this kind of a data or an article written by, suppose I write an article for Lancet based on some non-existent data that is checked in medical journals. I don't know, because of the pandemic, there is an urgency to publish and try to get a clear picture, and that is where we have seen this kind of a data disaster, as I would say. So let us look for further concrete evidence to come through. Yes, if these vaccines and treatments and tablets or injections or remdesivir, it may take a lot of time, and there is a sense of urgency in common man amongst doctors as well. But then you need to prove that something works, and you also need to prove that something works safely. And that is a time-consuming process.
That's where the whole crux lies, doesn't it, Doctor? It is a time-consuming process, and we're really trying to probably hurry our way through in finding a vaccine. Let's just say that after, say, a few months, because I do not know as to how long these trials usually take and how long before we finally know the overall efficacy of hydroxychloroquine. But let's just say in a few months, if the bottom line really is that hydroxychloroquine may as well prove to be effective in dealing with COVID-19, then where does India stand? Because India as a country has a lot of stock of hydroxychloroquine, so much so that we've even gone ahead and have exported a lot of it to several other countries like the United States and the UK. So where do you think India will stand? Do you think India will be the front runner when it comes to the manufacturing of vaccine, even if it isn't really hydroxychloroquine, given the fact that we have several pharmaceutical companies right here?
So yes, there is some degree of optimistic note. We have quite a huge stockpile of hydroxychloroquine. Indian medical companies like Cipla have been promised, production know-how of remdesivir. Moderna is coming out with their, clinical phase 2 vaccine trial, and India is also on the job. So as we speak, Manipal Hospitals is remotely monitoring 12 districts, 12 to 14 districts on Karnataka e-rounds, a venture that we are doing, to help COVID situation. And therefore, we are aware of how much of chloroquine is being used and what maybe its, beneficial effect. Harm, yes, we keep a eagle's eye view of what are the ill effects of this tablet.
Dr. Satya, again, at such a crucial juncture when you have trials being conducted on hydroxychloroquine, the whole world is talking about this particular drug. And it so happens that it is available in Indian pharmacies, in Indian markets. So as a doctor, as a pulmonologist, what would be your all-important advice to the people who are watching us as to whether they should really go ahead because it is freely available? Should self-medication be avoided at all costs? What would your message be on that front?
Hydroxychloroquine is a prescription medicine, means it has to be prescribed. There are safety issues which need to be looked and analyzed by a doctor. So there is a degree of customized medication. Do not self-medicate. It has got cardiovascular side effects, at certain doses and in certain combination with other medications. It has got what we call as pigment retinopathy, a distant side effect on the eye. But overall, bottom line, do not self-medicate. Now, we are using hydroxychloroquine. Our COVID designated hospitals are using hydroxychloroquine, very much, left, right, and center, if I can say so.
Dr. Satya, in fact, before we let you go, there's one last thing that I'd like you to throw light on. The number of cases that are on a steady rise, both the number of cases and also the number of deaths. In the last 24 hours or so, we are seeing new peaks being touched. And all of this is coming at a time when you have Unlock 1.0 being implemented. We've moved away from the lockdown phase. 4.0 was the last of what we saw. And now we're slowly stepping into Unlock 1.0. So what is your thought on the number of cases that are only skyrocketing and whether the healthcare system on the ground is equipped enough and whether the lockdown has given the healthcare system time to prepare for the surge in number of cases, Doctor?
Yes. Two things here, Mr. Adarsh. One, the unwritten rule in any pandemic is that there will be a peak in the cases. After the peak, there will be, a gradual decline. So we are looking at, September, where we may find a natural decline in COVID situation unless and until there is a second peak. That is point number one. Point number two, lockdown has fully, served its utility, if I can say so, in, ensuring time for escalating the build-up of healthcare resources, services, streamlining, and increasing the hospital beds, ventilators, medications, training the doctors at large, so many other aspects. And it has also given time for, flattening the curve. And now the peak is supposed to be happening now. So yes, across the country, more so speaking for our state, yes, there is a wholesome sense of readiness. And the government is very keen and is in touch with, district-wise hospitals, making good arrangements. And I think we are ready to brace for the, peak.
Karnataka is all set to brace for the peak, COVID-19 peak. Those are the words of Dr. Satyanarayana, a pulmonologist from Manipal Hospital. Many thanks, Dr. Satya, for joining us and for sharing your thoughts on both hydroxychloroquine and also when it comes to the number of COVID-19 cases. Many thanks, sir, for joining us once again. So there you have it. That was the brief interaction that I had with Dr. Satya, who clearly had his views on hydroxychloroquine. It's really a point where we have to wait and hope that the trials, when it comes to the vaccine itself, hydroxychloroquine, hydroxychloroquine are fruitful, and that the drug is in our hands legally, and that we can use it in case if we were to get COVID-19 infected. That's really the need of the hour on ground. And yes, when it comes to the number of cases, number of deaths is only on the rise, but the medical healthcare infrastructure, the healthcare system on the ground seems to be prepared for that sudden influx of patients as we slowly inch towards the peak. And yes, with the number of cases on the rise and a vaccine still a reality, the need of the hour, of course, it goes without saying, it is obviously stay at home and maintain all kinds of social distancing norms from other people, and make sure you're washing your hands, sanitizing yourself regularly. That's really the best form of defense that we have against coronavirus at this point in time. So this is all that I have for you in this brief interaction, but I'll be back again tomorrow with another trending topic, probably another guest on my side to share some trivia, some information that you can definitely use and keep in mind. This is W.H.O signing off.